And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Sterling, internationally known psychic medium with over 3 decades of experience. He communicates with spirit guides, angels, ETs, and more. Sterling, thanks for joining me today and welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here on your podcast, Jeff. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, let's start with your backstory. How did you become a psychic?
Very interesting backstory. Nothing I ever envisioned or sought out to do. I really spent many years in the entertainment industry, starting out around production engineering areas, moved out to working around a lot of major recording artists, and then moved in around working around the major studios, around executive leadership areas. But if I rewind just a little bit, one of the things I noticed very early in my career, I always had the abilities, many of the clairs active, but I didn't really call it the clairs, intuitive, and you could hear, had a knowingness. But being around a lot of very famous, let's say, recording artists, many of them would tell me, kind of in the off time or downtime, we're working on productions. I'd say, so like, where'd you get that song? And a lot of them, their very similar answer would come through. They said, do you really want to know the truth? I said, yeah. They said, I have no idea. I woke up this morning and within about 5 minutes, I wrote down this whole song, and that became like the biggest hit of their career. So I started seeing a pattern. I go, very interesting that they don't know where this stuff's coming from. It's just coming to them. And so a lot of highly creative people would always tell me that, even book authors and, you name it. So I saw a pattern there. And then to cut to the chase, about 1992, I was working around some productions from the major studios. I walked into an executive's office, and he had a lot of tarot cards on the wall that were all framed. I go, oh, it's very nice tarot cards. I said, where'd you get them? He said, oh, I got them from this guy, this psychic medium in Santa Barbara named Fred Fassett. Great guy. You should go visit with him and talk to him. He said, like, once a month, he's got a fair. He gets together with everybody. So I told my wife, and that following weekend, we went up and saw Fred Fassett. And my first meeting with Fred Fassett, he was billed as this tremendous psychic medium, had all this following. And I sat down with him, and in a funny way, he immediately scolded me. He said, why are you here? I said, well, a guy in the industry mentioned you were some great psychic medium, and my wife wanted to come up. And, he goes, why are you here? He goes, why aren't you using your gift? And boy, it just like blew me back. I said, what do you mean? He said, why aren't you out in public using, the psychic gifts you have? And I said, okay. And so that was really the beginning, 1992, where I really started to take it seriously. And with the support of my wife, I said, look, need to come out publicly and start using your gift more publicly. That's kind of where it started, 1992, doing it publicly. And it started off with a lot of people coming around me saying things like, Sterling, what do you get? That was the most common thing I'd always got. Like, what do you get on this? What do you get on that? It became kind of a game. My wife would come home and say, I know this person, whatever her name was, what do you get on her? I'd say, here's what I get on her. Go back to the office the next day. Oh, that's incredible. How did you know all that stuff? So that's kind of the genesis of it. And as I moved, I started taking it more seriously. I could see, I always had the ability to be a clairvoyant. I could see apparitions, could see what's going on. I could hear, I could feel. And as I started to take it more seriously, I noticed there were a group of like 8 or 9, call it entities, spiritual entities that would always be around, almost like sitting at a table. Like whenever I'd start talking, they would be there. And when someone asked a question, they would answer in the collective voice or single voice. And so that kind of ended up starting out being like the core team of individuals that were there to help. It became pretty aware that I was supposed to be like a telephone for a lot of this stuff. And I still view myself to stay as a telephone, but that's kind of the genesis of where I'll start off. And the more I started to get engaged with people and larger groups and do larger things, the team on the other side grew to include now millions of entities and a lot of extraterrestrials trying to get their messages through. So long story short, that's kind of how the synopsis of how it kind of all started off and led to kind of where I am today, where we do a weekly show. You and I were talking about this before the podcast started. On Sundays, I do a 1-hour show up on our YouTube channel, and that's based on 1,000 questions that come in each week across many topical areas. So it includes things like genetic engineering, spirituality, paranormal, science, politics, the future, So I really don't limit any of the topics that we address because I just, as I reach out to the other side, whoever wants to answer the question will answer the question. So anyway, there you go. That's in a nutshell. There you go.
Do you have a family history of psychics, like where your parents or grandparents won?
No, it's a great question. The closest I come to that is that growing up, my mother, everybody always say, your mother's highly intuitive, highly intuitive. They never use the term psychic medium or anything. And she'd always know things. But I've come to understand it doesn't necessarily get handed down through families. I know a lot of people think that, but we all have very large extended soul families and there's like thousands of members. So you really create your blueprint before you come down here. So it's not necessarily reliant, but I would say the closest I came to is my mother was highly intuitive, but never really embraced it out in public or talked about it. So, but I know for a fact I did not get the gift from her. It has a lot to do with, the blueprint you have when you come down here.
Is it possible that you had a spiritual awakening and some sort of event as a child that kind of turned these on for you?
No, and I've thought about that long and hard. I think it has to do with a lot of reincarnations coming down and agreeing to like take on the role of being, let's say, a communicator or a telephone. But there wasn't a near-death experience. There wasn't one experience that said, turn me on. I always kind of had the gift. And that's the funny part. A lot of people say, well, Sterling, tell us your story. And I said, well, kind of the story is there is no big story, is like the story. And I never even sought to do this work. So kind of got pushed into it, happy to do it. But, my career was really around entertainment industry and management and production, executive leadership. That's really where I focused all my time and attention. So, I didn't seek this out, nor did a bolt of lightning hit me. It just kind of, it was in the course,
So growing up, you occasionally hear things or see things and you would just not really pay much attention to it?
I would say I had some very strong abilities of knowing what was going to happen. So I was a precognizant, having the knowingness and the precognitive ability, also understanding where they were coming from. So you could almost like see through people. Is that person, coming from a truthful place? Are they communicating with their angelic team? And it got to a point where I could see a lot of people behind people. And so I said, oh, that's interesting. Their grandmother's following them around or one of their birth angels. But it's kind of, it's a mixed bag of when you kind of tuned in or not. I'll tell you this, that anybody that uses the gift, it does take a lot of energy. So it's like extreme focus. So one of the things that I think anybody that's doing this kind of work is you always have to learn at some point how to turn it on, turn it off. Nobody leaves it on all the time. You leave it all the time, you'll be a basket case, you'll be lying on your back. So, because it's just like intense concentration. So to your point, there were times I'd go through life where I was definitely turning it on and thinking about it. Other times where I completely ignored it. Maybe to the things that could have worked out a lot better if I keyed into it. I know my wife would always tell me, I've been with my wife for a long time. She always said, well, why didn't you use like your psychic abilities? We were in that business situation. I said, well, I kind of forgot. So that's the funny part. You can turn it on, turn it off.
What is the procedure that you go through when you do turn it on and off?
You're looking at it right now. It's just lean into it and talk. It's always available, like flipping a switch. So that's the odd thing, is that never had to meditate, never had to. It's really almost just quiet down just for a second, and it's there. So it comes very instantaneously. I just never had to go through any kind of procedure. Now, one side note is that one things I learned that I think is helpful for a lot of people. A lot of people in the world think you have to go into a deep meditative state to connect with your guides and angels. And I've come to realize over decades of doing this and working with thousands of people that everybody's born with, let's say, the Clairaudient gift. And you don't, the gift that we have is not to have to go into deep meditation to talk to your guides and angels. Once you kind of quiet the mind down and ask your primary angels and guides to step forward, you can communicate with them real time, just like we're doing right now. So there isn't a lot of pomp and circumstance to doing it. I find almost everybody can learn how to be clairaudient. And I even prescribe, simple 5-minute day homework you can do. It takes about 2 weeks the first time you do it. to get the what I call the creative mind center active. But everybody that gets the creative mind center active, some people want to call it the third eye, but that's the same center channel that everything communicates with, along with a lot of highly creative people.
Have you ever found yourself at the grocery store in line and you start hearing voices wanting you to say something to the customer in front of you and you're just like, I can't do this right now?
Actually, there's a lot of respect bi-directional from my team and from the other side and this side. So I have had experiences all the time where I'm in a public situation. So the grocery store is a great example. And it's not only voices, I'll see an apparition. It might be a child that woman lost in front of me. And, I don't always say something. It just depends on if somebody strikes up a casual conversation while you're going through the checkout line. And, sometimes we'll say something, this may sound really strange, but like, did you lose a child, several years ago? And they'll go, oh, yes. So, I'm just a telephone. So usually those are always meant to be messages we're supposed to hear. But it's very much a negotiation with me on the other side. They never really try to trample me or say, you got to say this. But I always allow myself to kind of be the conduit. If the right information, the right message is supposed to come through, I allow it to come through.
When you do see someone from the other side, do they look fully solid or transparent?
They look a little translucent, so it's almost like having a camera slightly out of focus, but then you can bring in the focus if you want. That's a good question. What's interesting is that we talked about the amount of energy it takes just kind of in the human body to kind of see these things, see a full-scale apparition or hear. You actually do intentionally have to focus a little more energy if you really want to fill out, are they wearing a plaid shirt? Are they wearing a pleated dress? So it takes a little more a little more energy to focus on that, but you can see them in a solid way. Most of the time it's somewhat translucent, but you can see their clothes, see what they're wearing. I don't always push the energy out there. If I'm talking to, let's say, a relative from the other side on behalf of a person, I don't always push the energy out. So I have to fill in every detail. Why they wearing a brown belt? Because it's almost, I don't want to call it wasted energy, but it's energy is not necessary. They really want to hear from their loved one, not that. Here's a footnote comment. Sometimes loved ones will say, you still have my mementos, like my belt buckle, and I'll bring that up. And they'll go, yeah, it's on my desk right now. So, yeah.
So what do you think people are doing on the other side? And what I mean is, why are some of their family members hanging around?
So this question comes up a lot. They only hang around. So when you go to the other side, you actually start a brand new life. That's what's interesting. And life's a continuum. So there is no death. There is no birth. It's a continuum. And when you go to the other side, it's actually a graduation. You actually completed your life's work, what you're supposed to do here. And that includes all the different ways that people will cross, whether some people term it an accident or a suicide or a natural death. You can't get off the planet unless it's your time. But when you do get off, it's graduation time. And you actually move over and you start a brand new life. And a lot of people go through life reviews as that first initial phase of when you cross over. What did you learn? What did you take with you? How did you affect the people? And it's meant to kind of enrich your soul DNA, but you actually start a brand new life. What's interesting is you can move almost anywhere in the universe. In the universe, I mean that in a very large sense. There's something like over 20 trillion galaxies, right? So we're in the Milky Way galaxy, but 20 trillion galaxies. So you can actually move around almost anywhere you want. You can get life experiences before you come back, but Earth is a very unique school. But you start a brand new life on the other side. It's like walking out of your home and then walking through the front door and you're in Disneyland. Now you're in a brand new area. Now, to your question, why do people hang around? Loved ones come around all the time to make sure we're okay, to give us encouragement. They're not stuck, and they're also not your guides and angels. So they are still family members on the other side. It takes skill, because to your point, why do some loved ones, hang out or stick around? They want to see the best for you, and they want to be encouraging for you. But we also do have unique teams of guides and angels as well.
Do you ever see ETs walking around along with these other humans?
All the time. Like in 1992, when I started the work, after I saw the first Council of 8 or 9, and not to be confused with the Council of 9, just happened to be 9 spiritual entities that were around that were very well versed in the other side. As I said, I'm willing to use myself as a telephone. You got a message. A number of extraterrestrial groups start coming around: Palladian, Arcturans, and a number of what we call the praying mantis beings, which is a very highly evolved type of extraterrestrial. They stand very, very close into the angelic realm, the praying mantis. Now, some people, but anyway, yeah, so they start to come around. And a funny story is that my wife will see them every once in a while. And a funny story is, I guess about a year ago, had some dental surgery up in Beverly Hills. And I was in the chair waiting to be operated on. You know, it's always tense before you go through an operation. You know, it's not pleasant. And I looked in the corner. There was a very tall Palladian ET, about 14, 15 feet tall, staying in the corner of the room. I said, "That's interesting." I said, "Why are you here? Why are you hanging out?" And they're like, "Nah, I'm just kind of here for support." I'm like, "Okay, you know, not a big deal." I got home and I said, "You know, it's kind of interesting. I don't know why, but there's one Palladian standing in the corner of the room before my dental surgery." And my wife goes, "Oh my goodness, oh my goodness." I said, "What?" She goes, "I sent him there. I said, I know you were very worried about your dental surgery. I sent him there." So you can see how the connection works. I mean, I had no idea. She didn't tell me. He showed up. But yeah, that's the way the other side works.
Now, you're also able to see the future, right?
It comes from the Akashic Records, right? So that's where the Akashic Records, I'm sure you have some familiarity with it from prior guests, but everything in the universe, past, present, and future. Whenever you're dealing with angelic teams and you ask questions about or the past or the present or the future, they have to tap into the Akashic Records. So many times, like just for example, one of the things we do on our Sunday shows, our weekly shows on our YouTube channel, is that people will say, "What do you see coming up this week?" And many times my team will provide 5 or 6 things coming up. As a matter of fact, I saw the Air India disaster that happened a number of weeks ago, the week before it happened. A week or two ago, they said there's a very large earthquake coming up China-Russia region, and it'd be an 8.8. That's it. And we only do that. This is not for gamesmanship or, you know, to really play a game with this, but it's really to say, look, we're all in a universe here where there is rhyme or reason, there is an Akashic Records, there is a life plan. So that's really when you ask a question, see the future, it's really the angelic teams that I deal with and even extraterrestrials tap into the Akashic Records.
Have you ever thought about if you're able to see the future, does that mean we don't have free will?
I love that question. I love that question. It comes up a lot. So free will, everybody's on a life path. You pick a blueprint, all the lessons you want to learn down here. But free will, I always say, and my team has always said, interacts with your life plan with what they call the 3S rule. The 3 S's are speed, scope, and scale. So you can determine how fast you move through your life path. Do you go kicking and screaming, dragging your feet? Are you accelerating through your life path? What's the scope and the scale? How many people do you touch when you're here? Do you help 10 people, 10,000, 10 million? So the 3 S's are part of what I call the free will quotient, and they affect. So you can think about your life path and even the Akashic Records as like a giant slinky, right? So the slinky's still connected, but you can expand or contract that slinky. So you can change the speed variant, but it's still, all the life events are still connected. So free will, I always tell people, and my team says this all the time, it doesn't take you off your life path, but it can change some of the characteristics as you move through your life path. That's true.
So basically, we have maybe a list of major events that are going to happen in our life, and how we get there is up to us, but we're still going.
Exactly. So let's say you're destined to be a doctor. I'm just using it as an example. And you're kicking and screaming, and all you want to do is hike all day long, hike all the mountains you can think of, you know, worldwide. You spend years doing that. And then maybe at some point down the road, you sprain your ankle, hurt your ankle so bad you can't hike anymore. And you're sitting around, and your father was a doctor. So you go, okay, well, maybe I need to be a doc. You'll always come back to your life path. You can change. You can kind of meander a little bit, but you'll come back to your life path, what you agreed. Using that example, by the way, let's say you're a doctor and you agree to come down to develop some sort of unique eye surgery. You'll still do that. So, and everybody's life paths interconnected. So the people that were going to help you, let's say, create that development on eye surgery, or the patients that would come to you, they'll let you operate on them. It's all related. All of our life paths are interconnected around your life path blueprint. But free will doesn't allow you to kind of completely cross out your entire life path and say, I'm completely doing something completely different. Probably not. You'll come back to what you're supposed to do.
Once you met this psychic that scolded you and said, hey, you're supposed to be, doing the work, did you have to start flexing the psychic muscle and participating more to get it to work better, or it spontaneously came online for you?
So it is a mind muscle. We talk about all the time. It's like a musician has, muscle memory. When I first, in 1992, going back to that experience, it's a good question because, well, my wife's eyes got really big, and she's like hit the jackpot in a funny way. It's like, oh, he's a psychic medium, and he's always meant to be. This is great. So driving home from Santa Barbara that weekend, she took out a tablet of paper and a pen and asked just like hundreds of questions. And mostly about our family, what was happening, just, what's happening, our daughter, when she get married, what will the family look like, and all this and that. And I'll tell you that after doing that for about an hour and a half, that first time driving home, I did get very dizzy, so I need some water. I got very dizzy. So you do build up a little stamina when you're standing in that space to kind of do it. It's true. But I remember I had to pull the car over. I said, whoa, I felt like I had vertigo a little bit. So the more you do it, the stronger the mind muscle gets. It's true. Yeah.
If we go back to the beginning and you were talking about these musicians that you were working with, do you think that they got those songs from their higher selves or from entities?
I like that question too, because there's two kind of questions in there. Whenever I talk to my team, first off about higher self, they never make that distinction. The higher self is you. It is actually you. It's your complete soul DNA. So sometimes people, they use the terminology, just to be clear, that it's something separate outside yourself. You got to connect with it. You're connected. I mean, you can't get away from it. But yeah, they always admitted that it came through some sort of another channel, that they could see it happen. And yeah, there's so many stories to recount around that. One famous story, and that's been very public, about Paul McCartney when he got the song Yesterday. I think it even had a different name when it came, but it came to him so easily, he thought for sure that he had heard it somewhere. But he walked around for a year humming it to a lot of people and saying, you ever heard this song? And they said, never heard it. Took him 1 year to realize it was his, and it came to him that way. So it really is, it's you connecting through that creative mind center. In its simplest form, I tell people, if you can calm yourself down, and let's say, make sure you don't have a lot of anxiety around you. You want to be in a calm, relaxed state whenever you're doing this kind of work. And now let your imagination go wild. See what kind of thoughts come to you. But those thoughts a lot of times are coming from your angelic team. They're trying to feed you some sort of an image or a message. But that, opening yourself up to that space is where the information comes through. Likewise, a lot of the songwriters, musicians got it that way. Just to do one little name drop, like Michael Jackson, didn't really play a lot of instruments per se, but he had a lot of creative information that flowed to him, and he'd hum it. So I was around environments where a lot of studio musicians would have to mimic what he hummed, but he was getting those melodies and he's getting them from the creative mind centers. So yeah, it's true.
In doing my research for today, I also noticed that you worked in the film and television industry, right?
I did, yeah.
What did you do over there?
So my pathway into the entertainment industry came through engineering. I double degreed in my undergraduate degrees in mechanical, electrical engineering. But I never wanted to do engineering per se. I always wanted to know about technology to pursue creative aspects. So like the first time seeing an audio animatronic figure at Disneyland or something, I said, that's what I want to do. So very soon after getting out of college, I got involved. My first job out of college was laser video disc company, Pioneer, and being Pioneer Video. You have to go back in the Wayback Machine. If the younger people in the audience may not remember, like 12-inch laser video disc, which were the precursor to compact disc. But then my next job was a Sony Corporation. And at Sony, I had a leadership position in the broadcast division and video division, where we support a lot of worldwide broadcast accounts and television networks. So I always got involved in the creative aspects around television via production, engineering technology, and using breakthrough technology to solve problems. And then I was in a leadership position in like Sony Professional Audio, where I travel around the world helping artists do digital recording and console, helped them with consoles, and I saved a number of major projects that had problems with the technology. Some funny stories around that, but that's really the bridge was always around technology into production and then bleeding edge technology to help artists achieve what they wanted. So by virtue of that, I also became a member of the Recording Academy and still vote on the Grammys every year and still maintain that. Yeah, so it's a lot of fun, but the most, everything happens on your life path for a reason. So while I was doing that, I thought, well, this is my career. This is it. And now when I look back on it, it was actually all the creative people I ran into that was supposed to turn on, effectively enlighten me to the fact that these people were not doing things just on their own. They were getting angelic help from the other side. And I was just a vehicle for that. So yeah, it's funny how life works.
If you ever put on the electrical engineer hat, how do you make sense of all of this wearing that hat?
I love that question. You guys have good questions, Jeff.
Thanks.
So, let me start to answer it this way. Many people would come to me when I was doing this psychic mediumship work, and they'll say, "Well, that's great, Sterling. I get that, but I'm very technical. I'm very logical, and because of that, there's certain things that I don't realize." And I would tell people, it's interesting because I do have a very broad technical and a business background out of UCLA with a master's. I said, I understand the limitations of the human being, the human body. You can't see infrared. You can't hear radar. Actually, the very fact that I spent so many years around technology and during school, I realized limitations. And the very fact that then if you couple that again with like stories, there are very good stories around where you see 5-year-old children described how they passed away in World War I, what their name was, and the well that they, their reincarnation stories or their near-death experience stories where people bring back information. There are things that you just can't always explain away. So I like the technology bent because a lot of people, that should be the starting point to say, yeah, absolutely, we don't know everything that's going on. Yeah.
All right. Have you seen anything that's coming in the next 6 months?
Yeah, so lots of things happening. Let me bring this into a larger context, then we'll kind of bring it a little smaller. From a macro standpoint, right now, we are all in what my team calls a 3-decade reset, year 2020 to 2050. And probably one of the most important 3-decade resets that we're ever going to see in our lifetimes and even in thousands of years here. Because this is the time where people actually, they get more intuitive. They start, the common person will be a psychic medium. You're going to see tremendous breakthroughs around full-scale disclosure on extraterrestrials, hybrids that are around us all the time, genetic engineering to take a lot of the world's diseases. Really, this is a time of tremendous growth in humanity. So this 3-decade reset is very, very important. Likewise, there's a lot of frame-breaking change going on or change elements happening right now around the world. So you look at what's happening in politics right now. And, to a lot of people, it's devastating with the cuts in programs and things. But many of the things going on right now are they call change agents. And it's almost like you shine a flashlight on something, say, look, here's where the Constitution has some big holes in it. So we're going to see a lot of changes coming up around the structure of politics, amendments to the Constitution, changes around the White House, interestingly enough. But we're going to see things kind of get back to a place where humanity is served better for the masses. In terms of like very short-term things going on, we're still going to have unfortunately, a lot of aeronautical disasters, and for a variety of reasons, technology, quality control, safety systems. So everybody's got to be a little careful in that area. But also, almost every month that goes by, big breakthroughs occurring in genetic engineering around CRISPR technology. I don't know if you're familiar with CRISPR technology, but we're seeing a lot of breakthroughs. Some 5-6 years ago, when I started our YouTube shows, my team was talking about CRISPR and genetic engineering around pancreatic cancer, hearing, Alzheimer's treatments, heart disease. But so all these things are coming up incrementally as we go kind of week to week here. But kind of in a nutshell, kind of from a macro to kind of a micro view of kind of where we're at, what's going on right now.
What about the Epstein case? Do you have any finality with that?
Well, when it first happened, I asked my team what happened, and they said that Jeffrey was first off taken out. It was not suicide. So I don't want to bust anybody's bubble here, but he was taken out. Powerful people were compromised, and so. But what is happening there is that a lot of this information is going to be released in spite of what's happening around Maxwell right now. You're going to see a lot of information coming out because there's electronic copies of all of the information. Has to do with travel records, bank dossiers, all this information is going to come out. A number of oligarchs have the complete files, and unfortunately, they have it in for some of the leadership that's in the U.S., like having your yacht seized is not a very good thing. Yeah, so this is going to play out in a way that's the truth is going to be revealed, and where you're going to see it all, a lot of people implicated.
So you're saying that the list is going to come out?
100%, and it won't be that long. And don't worry about, say, the U.S. government releasing it, because it's going to get released by other worldwide sources. So that many of these copies of these files are already distributed around the world, and many are offshore, and the information will be coming out. Yeah, absolutely. It's all part of kind of the life path plan. We talked about our life path blueprint, and this is kind of the life path blueprint of Earth, of Gaia.
Are you seeing any big weather events coming down the pipeline soon?
Many, and it has a lot to do with the Earth resettling right now. So we talk about the Ring of Fire all the time, and the fact that we've got a lot of activity around. 2 weeks ago, when my team said a huge earthquake coming to the China-Russia region at 8.8, we now already see volcanic activity in Russia. I think it has not gone off for 800 years or something. I think I saw a news report this morning. But you're going to see a lot of volcanic activity and tectonic plate shifts out in the oceans, Indian Ocean, even Atlantic. We're seeing a lot of movement around, a lot of tsunami warnings worldwide, and even around the Japan region. So when I look at my team, we've got about a decade to go through here, kind of inside that 3-decade reset. But about a decade here, a lot of resettling is going on around the world and the Earth. Tectonic plates, volcanic eruption. As a footnote, people always ask, is Yellowstone going to blow? I don't see Yellowstone blowing, not for several hundred years, so don't worry. Probably not going to be around. But even by that time, there'll be a lot of safety precautions. But yeah, a lot of earthquake activity, and the entire climate for the world has shifted. It's almost shifted around like 180 degrees. Where all the regions that were cold are now going to be very hot, and the ones that were, hot are now going to be much colder. And last but not least, within 1 to 2 decades here, absolute rise in sea levels by about 2 feet around the world due to doomsday glacier melting, a lot of things happening around Antarctica. Yep. Quick footnote, Jeff. Sorry to jump in here, because this happens. My team was just reminding me to tell you. A lot of times people ask, how are extraterrestrials already helping around the planet? They recently just helped by mitigating a lot of tsunamis that would have taken over a lot of countries here from that big earthquake. So they actually mitigated almost none of the tsunamis had a detrimental effect around the world.
Can you ask your team if they're ever involved with crop circles?
100%. 100%. And then actually, I'll tell you that only a very small percentage are man-made, and you can actually debunk those pretty quickly. Crop circles, it's almost like putting an encyclopedia of information down the ground. It's actually done, there's a nuclear process that happens. It's actually a nuclear reaction. You can actually examine the blades of grass, for example, and you can see, how different heat loads were taken on just that blade of grass. You can't mimic that. But they're detailed analysis and information for humanity. I've read crop circles, and there are people around the world that can read them. And some of it is spiritual, meaning as you look at the crop circle, you won't necessarily you won't see a word and English words, but your team will start flowing in and saying, this is what that means about how the universe was created. What's the nearest galaxy? The universe is expanding at an infinite rate, at the speed of light. So they're real, but about 99% of them are real. We've got about 1% that are hoaxes.
Do you think, or have you ever heard or learned that we'll have catastrophic disclosure? And what I mean by that is just the ETs will disclose themselves without any government permission anywhere on the planet.
You talk about kind of the process of disclosures, kind of talking
Well,
about.
they just show up one day and say, "Hey, we're here."
No, actually, there are many around the world that have been asked to kind of shepherd this process in, and I'm kind of one of them. There are thousands, but you're actually the world will be introduced to hybrids first. So there is a large number of hybrids already on the planet, and they're biologically part extraterrestrial, part Homo sapiens sapien. They're already working around society in many, many areas. So that will be the first revelation. Oh, these individuals were hybrids. I was wondering why we got so much help in this area of science or education or whatever. So once hybrids are introduced, the concept of where hybrids came from, who are they? Are they Palladian? Are they Arcturian? Are they Syrian? Then there'll actually be worldwide disclosures via governments of actual extraterrestrials and say, look, we're going to introduce ourselves almost like, like State of the Union speeches. It reminds me a little bit in a funny way, if I think way back to, I think it was the Twilight Zone, where they had one of those a very large, tall, 15 or 20-foot extraterrestrial, and he was introduced to the world. But that was a funny one because the book was to serve, but it was like how to serve man. They remember that that Twilight Zone. But in principle, though, there'll be a coming out via the world's government. So it's going to be orchestrated in a way that will have some reason to it. It's not just look, we're here. It'll be like, look, we're here, and actually here's all the ways that we have helped and are helping right now. And not the least of which will be the introduction of holographic display systems. So you'll be able to see the world and the history of the universe holographically. You'll be able to be in your living room and be able to see exactly how the universe was created, what's happening in the next galaxy from us, Andromeda. So a lot of this technology will be indisputable, and a lot of people will say, well, that's not real, or I'm threatened by that. They'll have to take a step back and say, kind of take it all in. But it won't be random, and it won't be a fear-based. It'll be like, here to help, and we kind of have to get humanity on track here.
What about the wars going on in the Middle East and Ukraine and Russia? Will there be any escalation?
It's interesting. Extraterrestrials are working very hard to kind of keep a lid on a lot of that. So there could have been a nuclear event around Iran, and I even saw something going on there a number of months ago. They're helping to keep a lid on it. In terms of escalation, let's say if you're asking about like a World War III, our team never sees a World War III taking place. Now there's too many safeguards around the world that will kind of prevent that. We're going to have a lot of sporadic fighting around this 3-decade reset until humanity really kind of gets it together. I stated right now that Homo sapiens sapiens are more like individuals in kindergarten. If you include like what's happening with extraterrestrials, it's just it's fascinating. It only gets back to the earlier thing we we're talking about. About having, let's say, a technical background, say, well, I don't believe it because technically it doesn't make sense. Yeah, because you're not seeing like the major portion of what's really going on. But I don't see a World War III. A lot of minor escalations, very regional escalations. But by and large, we're going to be able to keep a lid on it.
Can you ask your team if Atlantis and Lemuria actually ever existed?
They did. Absolutely, they did. And whenever I've talked to them about this, I always heard that Lemuria succumbed to some sort of a natural disaster. So it could have been a monumental tsunami, earthquake, something reclaimed it from a natural disaster. Atlantis, I've always seen, was a technology disaster, a major nuclear event, nuclear explosion. They let technology get too far ahead of them, and couple that with kind of nonsense that the humans get involved in all the time with wars. So kind of, they did exist, but kind of two different reasons for their demise.
Is it possible in the near future that we're all going to be hybrids?
Yeah, not necessarily hybrid. By its definition, hybrid, biologically, you're part extraterrestrial biology and part Homo sapiens sapien. However, with genetic engineering, there's a lot of improvement in humanity. So a lot of the diseases down to the cellular level will be changed. So in that way, if you go decades out, what you'll see here walk around the planet we'll start to get more tuned to the kind of the biology of extraterrestrials. Extraterrestrials through millions of years of evolution have gotten through all these diseases, right? They've already tackled all these things that we're still wrestling with. So in that way, now I'm sure if you push out millions of years from now, a lot of what exists around the universe will be much more homogeneous. It will be, just by virtue of a lot of things happening between the populations will create more of a homogeneous population. That's true. But we're like that millions of years out for that.
What about humans applying AI to our bodies, or, chipping ourselves and doing things with Neuralink and becoming more extensive?
That will happen. That's going to take place. I've already seen the future in that area. So, artificial intelligence is definitely part of the natural progression of the world, the universe. It'll be as ubiquitous as water and electricity, and it will become sentient. It's not going to have a soul. Kind of jump ahead. A lot of people always ask these questions about AI. It'll be sentient. They'll be reasonably be intuitive, but intuitive. But yes, we'll start integrating more and more of the technology into the body to help the body. So, there will be chipping of people, and people resistant to it. I get it. You won't be forcibly chipped, but think about being able to have a microchip on a nano level, 1 billionth of a meter, a nano level. Then that will help you kind of communicate with external computers, external supercomputers, to be able in an instant plan your trip to New York. Or I need to have my that weird example. Need to have my child driven to school. You can actually summon, an automated taxi or transportation device, and your child's taken care of. It'll speed up a lot of the mundane tasks, and it'll give humans the access to trillions of pieces of data that we don't have. And one of the things that artificial intelligence does that the human being can't do, the mind, is assimilate relationships across trillions of pieces of information. It's very difficult for humans to say, I take a bit of information over here and then a bit of information over here and here, and here's a relationship I never saw before. Here's a cause and effect. Those are the ways that AI is going to be very, very powerful. And yes, there'll be integration of technology. Elon Musk is already doing some of that with the Neuralink. But that's the baby, that's the infant form of the technology. It won't even be as invasive as having to put it in your brain or your head. It may just end up going in your finger or something of that nature. So it won't even be as invasive. But it's all coming, yeah.
Do you think we'll ever get to the point where our brain will be hooked up to the internet? So you could just ask yourself a question like, 8 billion times 952,000, and you'll instantaneously know the answer?
That technology is already being tested right now. I don't want to scare anybody, but it already is. Yeah. So that interface, that complete biological to technical interface is already being tested and evaluated right now. Has to come down the cost curve right now, very expensive. But yes, that'll be something you'll be able to walk around with and say, what's the best place to buy my next car? And they'll say, go over here and here's the car. It'll really improve the ability of human beings to kind of function. And I know it's a big wave of technology. Technology is moving at an exponential rate right now. And so a lot of people that were born, a while back, they're not comfortable with all the technology. I get it. And, but this is actually what's happening here. And if you look at where extraterrestrials are at right now, that is what the future of humanity looks like in terms of the ability to solve a lot of the things that we find very technically difficult or socially difficult to solve right now. Be able to solve it very, very quickly and access information and be able to act on the information within billionths of a second is coming. It'll be a standard.
Do you see us being able to live longer in the future?
Absolutely. The last time I talked to my team about this, they were saying that on average, as more and more genetic engineering is integrated, there's big developments within 1 decade here for a lot of genetic engineering, CRISPR technology around cancer treatment and Alzheimer's, whatnot. But that the average lifespan of the average person would increase by about 40 years, 40. So if you were meant to pass away at 70, probably live to 110, 80, probably 120. But on average, most people see about a 40-year increase. The next question people always ask is, oh, but if I live 40 more years, do I have to work 40 more years? No, but people will find different ways of contributing to society in terms of helping people, helping the planet. There'll be different ways of kind of integrating your skills that you learned over, let's say, a 40-year career. But then the next 40 years, you're doing something to help sustainability in the planet, or solar power, or free energy. And that's from a quantum physics standpoint, not an economical standpoint, free energy.
Do you ever see us moving into some type of Star Trek society?
As we go many, many decades out, this will be on the backs of a lot of extraterrestrial full disclosure as we go many, many decades out. There are what they call right now functioning galactic federations among a lot of the extraterrestrial species, among a lot of the galaxies. And we will get to a place where it's kind of it'd be like United Nations on steroids, but much more highly evolved, so that people aren't trying to kill each other all the time for power. Extraterrestrials don't have that gene, that chromosome where we need to kill each other in order to make things better in life. They don't think that way. They are very territorial. So there's territories around the universe or galaxies they want to protect. I get that. But usually they don't resort to violence. So yeah, but there's already is a galactic federation that will be introduced to Earth, but it'll take a while for Earth and a lot of the governments around the world to kind of like lean into that and say, oh, this is for the greater good. And a lot of the selfishness that humanity has right now will go by the wayside. Like, I need to get the better of you in order to make my life better. I need to put you down somehow in society to make my life better. That logic's going to start to go away. And that's all part of the evolution of humanity here. And that absolutely is part of the 3-decade reset, the 2020 to 2050.
Well, what will Earth be like after the reset?
People will be focused much more on unification of the world. And that means like a broad term, but it's more like we're living here on one planet and Earth is a school. They'll actually understand we actually are here in a spiritual school. Oh, there is another side. There are other dimensions. The heaven dimension moves at the speed of light. That's why I can't see it. But they're going to start to move beyond just kind of the here and now. And now is a much larger understanding of why we're here. We're reincarnating for a reason. There are other dimensions. How do we access the other dimensions? How do we grow beyond what we think we know? And war is going to be less of an issue after 2050. That may be kind of surprising for people, but there'll be many countries less likely to want to pick up weapons, nuclear weapons, for example, at that time, to try to annihilate. There's going to be much more understanding of that we're all together. A lot of the extraterrestrials are going to bring that knowledge to Earth, understanding of kind of here's the microcosm of Earth and why you don't see everything. So it really at 2050 is starting. A lot of children born in 2050 will just see such a completely different world than the prior several thousand years of evolution. It really will be a real big tipping point.
Many people believe that we're going to go through, if we haven't already started, what is called the Ascension. Can you give us any information on that?
Sure, happy to. Yeah. So the question regarding the Ascension, I'll preface this by the fact that a lot of people will say things like, we're going to 5D, and what happens when we go to 5D? Well, we're not going to 5D and we're in 3D. So I spent a lot of time with my team talking about all this over many years. So first off, we're in a 3D world. And if you integrate time, time is linear on Earth. That's a 4th dimension. A 5th dimension is actually a dimension that's moving faster than the speed of light, like heaven. There are a lot of dimensions moving faster than the speed of light. For psychic mediums, you can perceive that dimension. That's how you kind of see that. Now, Ascension really has to do with a progressive elevation of everybody's understanding. Like people talk about the veil becoming thinner. So the Ascension is really more about a revelation, understanding, we can talk through the Creative Mind Center to our father that passed away. Oh, I can communicate with my pet through the same channel. So the growth that's happening here is a progressive growth for everybody. And it's not necessarily an ascension or moving to the 5th dimension. People, I think 5th density is probably more accurate than saying 5th dimension, but it's really a progressive growth of everybody understanding spirituality, your soul DNA, who you are. That's really what it's all about.
You describe your abilities as a gift. Does that mean that only some people have a gift, or do we all have abilities, but at different levels?
So everybody's born with a clairaudient gift. Like there are 8 fundamental clairs if you look at it. And everybody's born with a clairaudient gift. I love this question because, sometimes even the atheists in the world say, I don't believe in any of that. But before they get hit by a bus, somebody yells out, look out. and there's nobody around. It's their guides and angels. But everybody has the Clairaudient gift, and all children up to about the age of 9 or 10 have very good use of it. Even many of them have the clairvoyant gift. They can see. They can see a child. There's some 4-year-old child following them around. Oh, there was a child that got hit by a car 3 years ago. So we all come into this world with at least 1 or 2 of the clairs working. Almost everybody has a clairaudient. By about 9 or 10 years old, people start to shut it down. They start to get engaged in all the practical nature, and you can't do that. And your parents tell you, stop talking to the imaginary person. Now, I'm just going to focus on the Clairaudient gift right now. Everybody can develop it. You can reactivate it. And we talk about a 5-minute homework assignment where you can sit down, and it's not meditation, but you actually just grab a journal and a pen and you ask your primary angels and guides to please step forward, ask them to reveal any messages they have, create one question you want an answer to, and you're not going to get an answer right away, so you immediately make up the answer, and that pushes that creative mind muscle. But you do this kind of exercise for 5 minutes a day for at least 2 weeks, you start to get to a place you get rushes of thought, and there are things you wouldn't have known, like telling you to call somebody you hadn't talked to in 5 years. And then when you call that person, they go, hey, I was just thinking I was just going to call you. But everybody can get the clairaudient side working. Now, the other clairs, let's say claircognizant, a knowingness. No, they kind of come down preloaded with some of that. To be very clairvoyant, to see images, to see movies, to understand the future. Yeah. And I find that, I do live streams on Fridays for a lot of what we call our membership on YouTube. And a very common question that comes up are, Sterling, what are my clairs? And a lot of times I'll look and I'll say, we got 3 of them kind of functioning: clairaudient, a little bit of clairvoyance, a little bit of claircognizant. Some people have clairsalience. That's the smelling clair. So you can smell somebody's perfume around you and no one's around you. And that was the perfume grandma wore or something. But not everybody comes down here loaded with all the clairs working, but you do have at least 1 or 2 of the clairs working. I know that years ago, decades ago, when people used to talk about, psychic mediums, I used to think, oh, that's a very special person. That's all very special. Or they talked about animal communicators. Oh, that's very special. And then when I started doing all the work, I saw, oh, everybody's got a portion of that gift. Oh, animals communicate through the same channel that guides and angels and family members. It's the same channel. So you kind of realize that, I don't want to say it's not special, but everybody can kind of lean in and develop the gift and connect with their team. We all have angelic teams around us, usually at least 1 or 2 birth angels that keep you on the planet. You don't leave before it's your time. You have working spiritual guides. Some are health guides, healing guides, creative guides, trauma guides, pragmatic guides. But everybody can learn how to communicate with their team. So long story short, it's if you have all the clairs functioning, and I have many of the clairs functioning, you come down already signed up for that. The one footnote I'll tell you is that people always ask, what's the difference between an old soul and a new soul? It has to do with the number of reincarnations. And when you're an older soul and you come back, you actually make a commitment to do certain things when you come down here. So it's not just all, a cakewalk. If you're an older soul and you come down here, you're actually expected to help. It's not like, give me all the clairs and I'm really just going to sit by the beach all day. So
what are all the clairs?
If you can remember them all, you got clairaudience to hear, clairvoyance to see, claircognizance is knowingness, clairempath is feeling, clairsalience is smell, and I forget the other 2 or 3. One's a tactical feel. I forget the name for it. I don't have them all memorized, but there are 8 fundamental ones.
All right. Many people.
Oh, clairsentient is another one. Build sense.
Right. There's 2 more, which I don't even know.
Well, the tactile one I would just always forget, so you can feel touching.
I wonder if that's the one where people can hold an object, like a pencil, and then know who had it last or something.
Well, that's psychometry. But this is actually what you can feel people touching all the time. Put your hand out and you actually feel the other side touching your hand.
Many people say that they try to contact their guides and angels and are unable to do so. Why is that?
It takes a little bit of practice. Everybody can learn to do it. And I do hear that all the time. I will tell you that you do have to be in a relaxed state. So you don't have to meditate, but I tell people to calm down your mind. Don't be thinking about what you had for lunch yesterday. Don't be stressed out about what happened at the car dealership. Calm yourself down. So let's say everybody's in a calm state. Getting that creative mind center working. So now you're hearing thoughts, you're hearing, it's stepping into that space. And once, let's say, I wave a magic wand and they're calm, they're the clear creative side's working very well. Most people, it starts off as a rush of thought. So I find a lot of people will look past it. Like, oh, is that my guys? I thought that was just me talking to myself. But if you hear something like, for example, you get to a place where you say, go to the store tomorrow at 2 o'clock. You go, that's kind of weird. I was going to go today, but I go tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And then you go the next day at 2 o'clock and you see a childhood friend you hadn't seen in 20 years. You go, well, that has to be them. My experience of working with thousands of people around this is that people start to develop the gift, but they look past it. It starts off very subtle, and then you learn to understand it. You go, okay, that's the message coming from my team. Now, the more you do it, the stronger that mind muscle gets. You actually can start to hear discrete voices, male or female. But the answer to your question, more times than not, people look past it. They think someone's going to scream in their ear right away. It doesn't start off with a scream. It starts like as a rush of thought.
Is there anything in the future that's coming that is so big that we either have to prepare for it or brace ourselves?
Full disclosure, for a lot of people, full disclosure of extraterrestrials is going to be quite alarming. It's going to be quite, look, a lot of the religious community, it's going to upend a lot of the things that people know about religion. A lot of people are very anchored in religion in this country. It has to be this way. It says it that way. Oh, how could it not be? How could the Catholic Church have hidden all this information? I'm not going after any one particular religion here, but it'd be a big eye opener. I think that's going to be in the short term one of the biggest eye openers for a lot of individuals.
Do you have a timeline for this?
We're on top of it right now. Disclosure has already started, but in terms of people really getting out in public, we're within 1 to 2 years here. We're right on top of it right now. It's already starting, and they're already working, have been for a long time with many world governments and scientists right now to help with humanity. But we're on top of the disclosure timeframe right now. You also see the thousands of sightings of extraterrestrial ships around the world, shuttlecraft. About half of the drones that you saw being reported on right around the East Coast, those were extraterrestrial drones, along with government drones trying to look at their drones. Those drones spying on drones. But it's already started.
You mentioned that you have live streams on your YouTube channel or something like that. What is your channel so people can watch those?
Sterling Psychic Medium is the YouTube channel. We also have a website, sterlingpsychicmedium.com. Lots of resources up there. But when you join the Platinum membership on YouTube, then it gives you access to the live streams. Right now I'm doing them at 10 o'clock Pacific time zone on Fridays. And we actually break apart the alphabet into 4 different segments. There's so many members right now. So I think, for example, like next Friday, this coming Friday, doing like A through F. But yeah, once they join, they have full access to the live streams. They ask questions in the live chat. And there's hundreds of videos of the archive that they can get access to as well.
Is there anything else that you're working on that you want people to know about?
Coming up, we're actually going to be doing, at some point here, going to start doing some events. And I hope to start writing some books. We've had probably over 100,000 questions answered over a number of years here. And we're going to try to pull this together in some sort of a book of a lot of the answers that have come through. And so some books are kind of in the process, some live events where I hope to meet with a lot of people in person. That's kind of what's coming up during next number of months, so to speak, in terms of extra things.
Well, Linda G also lives in California. Do you guys ever plan to do an event together?
At some point we might. We've never talked about it. I'm in Southern California. She's in Northern California. But at some point we just might. Yeah, I know she has a number of events she's doing up there in Northern California, and I think Chicago and some other cities. At some point probably will. I'll tell you the funny part. She's like a family member. My wife was very friendly with her at first. My wife then introduced me to her. And we've never met in person, but we talk, hundreds of times over Zoom. So it's kind of funny that in the world we live in, we've never been in the same city at the same time yet. So
that's amazing. Lately, it's been reported that there's some sort of asteroid or something out there that's huge, like 7 miles long, and it's on its way towards us. I think it'll be here in about 2027.
third interstellar atlas.
Right. What can you tell us about that?
That is a natural phenomenon. That is not an extraterrestrial ship. And the funny part is, I was talking to my team about that. Nearly all of the extraterrestrial groups have cloaking technology. They're not going to show themselves hurling towards Earth as a large meteor. They actually got to go laugh at that. But, this is a 3-eye atlas, or no, it's a natural phenomenon occurring. It's actually not going to hit Earth. But no, there's plenty of like Palladian, triangular shaped, large ships floating around the ionosphere, the atmosphere. Those could be seen, but don't worry about the 3-eye atlas.
If we want to make contact with ETs, how do we do that?
So everything works through your angels and guides, your direct team. So the team that we all have with us. So they're the stewards. So if there's something you want to know from an extraterrestrial team, so your guides and angels that help facilitate that for you. Many extraterrestrials are happy to answer questions. The one differentiation point I'll make is that they never become part of your working team unless that's part of your life path. So they're very intentional. So if people always say, well, I want to start working with them and help develop this next science breakthrough. Well, if it's not your life path, it won't happen. But your angels and guides can absolutely facilitate. I'll also tell you, a lot of people want to communicate with them. And, there's an easy way to do that. If you go out into very dark, remote areas around the world, take a camera with you, a mobile phone camera. They're sensitive to the infrared spectrum. A lot of the extraterrestrial ships will communicate with you. Now, it may sound phenomenal at first when I was telling people this, but actually, when you go out just in a remote area and they say, please, if there are any extraterrestrial ships up there, please show yourself. And you'll see like one particular star flash on and off twice and go, if that's really you, do that again. There's 2 flashes. Okay. Well, you can hear me. And then maybe a second or 2 later, it goes off at lightning speed. It's gone. You actually can't communicate with that higher level intelligence right now. They do that really just as kind of a show of support. Say, we're here. If you doubt that we're here, we'll show you we're here. By the way, you don't have to say a poem or a rhyme or a chant to get that to happen. You have to say like 3 Hail Marys and pass the bread and get them to, they'll actually, you can communicate with them. So getting them to flash a light or move through the sky, like move quickly from left to right, they'll actually accommodate you to show you, we're here, we hear you.
As an electrical engineer, how do you think that they're able to hear us from so far up in space?
Because it works through, when you look at consciousness does move faster than the speed of light. It moves like photon energy. So like photon energy can move across the universe at speeds that are unknown at this point. That's actually even how they communicate across galaxies. So if you look at consciousness and that energy and you put it kind of in the photon space, there's different forms of matter, right? So you get your physical matter, you have gas, liquid, you have plasma, but there are various forms of energy that can move much faster than we even understand. Yeah, and there's actually, remember, the universe itself is expanding at faster than the speed of light. It's infinite. So there are things we don't understand, but communications across galaxies, across the universe is already very capable. So communicating from here up to a ship is quite easy.
Do you think that there are ETs walking among us, either cloaked or they're just a species that look just like us?
There are, yeah. And every once in a while, you'll see something that doesn't look right. Like, so I spent a lot of time in New York, for example, and it made people, so they report like they see like 3 8-foot tall people walking all with the same trench coat, but they look like they're not really walking. They're kind of gliding along. So every once in a while, they don't always come out in public that way, but they do if for some reason they got to get from one place to another, whatever this is. that people have witnessed this before. They've gone into grocery stores and they said, I don't know, right through me. They're around, and so a lot of these things will come to bear. I thought that person I saw in the store was an extraterrestrial. In New York, I thought I saw one. They're around, and even more prevalent are the men in black. So the men in black are, in some cases, hybrids, some cases Homo sapien sapien. They're here to protect extraterrestrials so that they don't get entangled and they don't back into your car and now there's a fender bender. They keep them out of kind of the mundane. But the very fact there are men in black is also a backing reasoning that there are extraterrestrials here. There are real men in black protecting them.
Well, I've been saying for a while that I want to get an ET on my show. Do you think one will ever be willing to reveal itself?
I do, but it's going to come through government channels first before it comes to your show. And, so there's a certain pomp and circumstance of the way it's going to get introduced. And then they'll be available to a lot of different media outlets and media platforms. It won't be hidden. They're not even really hidden now, but the average person would, probably shoot them first as opposed to saying, there's just some way you can help us. So they're a little, they're put off by the fact that humanity is so violent. So coming on your show, they might think, well, then that's going to bring more attention to ourselves, but it's coming. You'll have one on your show probably within a few years here.
Sterling, before we wrap it up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Everybody needs to stand in their truth and know what their truth is. And when you stand in your truth, the world will respect it, acknowledge it. It'll help move the world forward. So people right now having a lot of trouble standing in truth and getting swayed, put off track by lots of things around them. But staying in your truth means you get centered in what you know is real and what's good for humanity and how we're all moving forward. So the watchword, the word of the day is truth. Stand in your truth.
Sterling, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure. And sometime, hopefully we'll get together in person at a conference or something here.
I hope so. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.